hard to believe that this is the time that I remember my dad so excited. And I'm like, Dad, what's so exciting? And he's like, I was at the flea market and I found the shampoo that I wanted and I was able to get a bottle this big, like, I don't know, like a full foot long. I don't know how you measure shampoo, but a lot of shampoo for $4, which is the same amount I got in the store for a little bottle, a quarter of the size for the same amount of money. And I was like, wow, you're really excited about shampoo, Dad.
Hello and welcome everyone to this week's episode of the Framework Podcast. I'm one of your two hosts, Jamie Hopkins, joined by Limón. Anna, great to see you as always.
Great to see you too, Jamie.
So, I know before we got started, I mentioned narwhals. So I think maybe today we'll start off with Robyn Crane, being that Crane reminds me also of an animal with our favorite animals today. But super excited to have on the show Robyn Crane, author, speaker, coach, CFP professional still today too. So super excited to have you on today, Robyn.
Thank you for having me. Yeah, we just had we recorded the podcast for you guys, and it's fun to come back and come on your podcast. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so we're going to have to go to the animals. So if you're thinking of an animal, which animal are you thinking of?
I'm going to go with dog right now because I have inherited a new dog, and now she's been with us a couple months, but now I have two dogs, and I also do have a cat, which is really weird. Never thought I would have a cat, but I like them all actually, which is nice.
Animals have amazing lives these days. I was just editing our halftime presentation for Carson coaching, and there's a cat named Nala who makes I can't remember what the figure is, but she's in the top 1% of earners. I was like, what am I doing with my life when this cat is making more?
He's in the top 1% of earners?
Yeah.
Wow. So I got to get my dogs on it. They're such slackers.
I know. Yeah. My dog's a very good looking dog. He has these blue eyes and he's half husky, half shepherd. He's my favorite animal, Jamie. I don't know if you're going to ask me, but I mean, if you know me and follow me on Instagram or Twitter, my dog is everywhere and I love him. Mm-hmm. I missed the boat on making him an influencer though.
Yeah, you should make them an influencer. I mean, they should pull their weight. I mean, it seems fair. Like they get houses and
clean
food.
Clean up after himself. Just, eats all my snacks. He needs to pull his weight. Yeah. I'll have a talk with him after this. For sure.
We're going to figure out a whole social media campaign and a marketing campaign and budget for the dogs coming up next. So maybe on the next podcast, we'll see how that went.
I didn't wear my shirt today, but I have two. I have my dog on a shirt, so I wear him a lot, Baxter, and it's one of my go-to looks. I have 3 things that I wear, and that's one of my main 3 things. So it's a pretty solid thing. So, Robyn, if
you have multiple versions of the same thing, right? You don't wear the same shirt every day. It's just the same looking shirt.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
I have 3 of that same white Baxter shirt. So I buy a lot of 3s of everything, and it just removes the, if I like it, then I buy more of them and I wear them. But you could see me in the same looking shirt 3 days in a row and be like, this guy didn't change, but they were just 3 of the same shirt. Yeah.
It's most of my husband's shirts are just black. And so he's probably got 25 black shirts. So sometimes he wears a red shirt. I'm like, oh, who are you?
Yeah, the same with my husband, Jamie. He has he's a personal trainer. So he has his retrofit training and it all looks the same. They're all the same shirt, multiple. So it looks like he wears the same thing every day. It's just,
Does your husband wear super tight shirts? My husband likes to wear them pretty tight. No, not with all those muscles.
Get him to wear tighter shirts.
Personal trainer, really? Wow.
He likes the baggy stuff. He's
really
old school. Likes the long shorts and the baggy shirts. And I don't know, trying to break him out of that.
Yeah, I could help. I get made fun of a lot for wearing too small of shirts at our company. So my schmediums. Yeah, they do. It happens. It's not my fault that they made them that size.
So Robyn, how many times were you the number 1 best-selling author? How many times is that again?
4 times. 4 times. We did it 4 times. Yeah,
love it.
I got to get my next book up though. That's the next thing. I'm just I keep losing focus, but I have a couple ideas for some books that I haven't done them yet. But you get in the rigmarole of everything else, and then it gets on the back burner. But yeah, 4 times.
Well, what's of the 4 books that you've gotten to number 1 bestsellers? Which one's most meaningful to you? Which one's probably your story, your message?
My baby. Actually, the last one, Make More Money, Help More People, because I I totally believe in that. And even with, coaching financial advisors, I fully 100% believe that when you make more money, you help more people. So most financial advisors, I think, are driven by the impact, but everybody, of course, wants to make money. And then if they're not making money, they have the imposter syndrome and feeling like a fraud. And so it's like you have to survive in this business, or you just don't have the confidence anyway. But then there's also, I think, these conflicting parts about it sometimes, because especially the women I work with, like they got in the industry because they want to really provide value. And then sometimes they're working with maybe the wrong people because they're like, oh, well, the bleeding hearts, I got to throw them a bone. But like, you really can't help people if they don't have much money in financial services. Like, it doesn't really work that way. So I always just go make more money, help more people. Because if you say help more people, make more money, they'll help all the people, and then they won't make the money, and then they're not helping themselves and really not helping the world. So I think the world needs it. And when they make more money, for sure, the impact is much greater.
Yeah, I love this conversation. I actually steer into this more over time, and maybe I might be wrong on it, but I know, Anna, you've heard me talk about this before too, is that like when you get more money or influence or impact, you can help more people, right? So there's kind of like, sometimes you talk to people that kind of push down on successful people in the sense of that. But if you want to have that personal impact on the world and others, you tend to need to gather influence and impact and money to be able to help more people. And, I know some advisors who have gone that route of the opposite side that like really care. I've told my friend, Dr. David, like they actually care too much about the people, because they spend a lot of time helping people that aren't financially helping the business. So then you end up with a business that's not operating well. And it puts a lot of stress back on the advisor because they're operating, in essence, an unsuccessful business, or not as successful as a business as they could be operating. And then I think that ultimately limits their impact, doesn't push it further.
For sure. Yeah, I had this client. Oh, sorry to interject.
No, go ahead, Robyn.
This is your podcast.
No, please go.
You reminded me, but I have this client who, when she first came to me, because one of the things I teach, I talk about identifying who you want to clone. Like if you can only clone, like have one client and you clone them 10 times, you'd be able to meet or exceed your revenue goal. So that's like this concept that I teach. And she was like, I'm so conflicted because I really want to help people like college students who I feel like they really need the financial education, but I know you're going to tell me I need to work with the $1 million clients, and I was like, well, I'm not going to tell you need to work with $1 million clients, but like, are there any $1 million clients that you loved working with and you provided transformational value to? Like, do you have any clients in your book of business? And she was running like a $500,000 business. She wasn't like a newbie or anything. And she's like, oh yeah. And I'm like, tell me about that person. And so she told me about, one of her clients, this woman who had $1 million, and she helped her, maybe 2 million. And I said, well, what if you just got 10 more of those, but you still like, you're welcome to help other people, but like, just focus on getting 10 more of like women like that. And then like go do talks at a college and like go write a book. And like, we can do all those things when you don't have the money problem anymore, and you can make as much money as you want. And it's not like you're not going to be fulfilled with helping those women. So as long as you're still fulfilled and you're providing value, then that will actually save you more time, than you can do more give back. And you can totally go to the colleges and have a much greater impact than helping the one-offs college student who has, $200 to invest maybe on a monthly basis into a Roth if we're lucky, right? So that worked well. She grew her business. It was awesome.
So Robyn, we were kind of prepping and at the beginning of the call about your first money memory, and you were kind of unsure about what you would say. So has anything come to mind?
Something did come to mind. I know. I was like, okay, I can't give you my first money memory because I have no idea. Like but I can tell you my brother's first money memory because he told me that. And then I'll tell you what I can think of. But my brother was telling me how he remembered that he would take dollar bills and go iron them. And I was like, really? Like, my brother's 6 years younger than me. I would have thought that I would have noticed that, like, you're ironing dollars. Like, that's pretty awesome. So he would have a really cool story. But I will tell you a memory that I have of my dad. And I was probably like way too old to be my first memory because probably in high school or something. But we would there's a couple parts of this, but we would always go to Chinese food on Fridays. So like every Friday night, maybe not every Friday night, but most Friday nights, like we'd go out to eat, and we'd go to the same Chinese food restaurant called the Mayflower. And one of the things I do remember is that my dad would always say, like, no, you're not allowed to order soda. And it wasn't like we weren't allowed to order soda for the reasons that I wouldn't let my children order soda because of the health reasons. I'm not a big fan of soda. it was because my dad's logic was like, why would I pay probably $1.25 at the time for a glass of soda when we can go buy a 6-pack for $1.50? Like that was just like not logical. And so we always wanted to like, oh, can we please get the soda? No, we can get soda at home. We'll get a 6-pack, whatever, so that's one of them. But what I really remember is this one time my dad came back from a flea market. And he was like, so this guy who's like, I have these money types. So we would call him a cheap chip, someone who is a good saver, doesn't like to spend a lot of money. He wants to call it frugal, but I like to call it like, a name that makes people want to change instead of be like, I'm awesome for being a cheap ass. Sorry, Dad. But he came back from a flea market and he was like giddy. Like I've never seen my dad so excited. Like hard to believe that this is the time that I remember my dad so excited. And I'm like, Dad, what's so exciting? And he's like, I was at the flea market and I found the shampoo that I wanted and I was able to get a bottle this big, like, I don't know, like a full foot long. I don't know how you measure shampoo, but a lot of shampoo for $4, which is the same amount I got in the store for a little bottle, a quarter of the size for the same amount of money. And I was like, wow, you're really excited about shampoo, Dad. But like, he was so like loved to save. And he was so excited, like when he got the best deal ever from the flea market. And I think I told him that recently and he's like, I wasn't that excited. I'm like, Dad, you were giddy. He's like, no, I was just thinking it was like a really good deal. I'm like, you were giddy, Dad. Like you were stoked about this shampoo. And he swears like he wasn't. But from my perspective, he was like, doing the jig, like dance or something. Like he got such a good deal on his shampoo.
I like how you just measured shampoo in length. Like you're like, however, I was like feet, like meter. Like I don't think like we're not
one as tall as a foot of shampoo. I'm like, I don't know volume. Like how much volume is in? Imagine it. Like I'm really bad at analogies too. So I'm like, something that makes you feel like you want to go to sleep at night that makes you really tired. Like that kind of analogy. Like what the hell are you talking about? The thing that. Yeah, so it's like the foot of shampoo versus, just 4 inches of shampoo, right? Whatever's like inside poetry. A bottle that high.
That could be your next book, is writing all of your analogies and your metaphors that are like that you think are off. That could be like, poetry.
Yeah. How to get excited about a foot of shampoo. And people are like, what?
Go to Marshall's and get you a foot of shampoo.
I'm really bad at that stuff. And like any sort of saying or idiom, my husband's like, that's not what it means. Like you're like narwhal. I'm like, I'm going to Google that real quick in case they ask me about a narwhal. Oh, it looks like a whale, I guess. Okay. Cause they're about to ask me. Okay. I saw it because I literally did. That's the beauty of online podcasts. Like you can quickly Google stuff. If I had ChatGPT open, I'd be like writing letters right now and copy. Yeah, I'm not good at like words and things. I actually had, I tried to get in the gifted program when I was 10 years old and I failed. I failed because they asked me what a tripod was and I did not know. And I was 10. I wasn't like 2. And now I'm like telling my kids like almost every day, like, by the way, do you know what a tripod is? Try means 3. Cause when I went back to my mom and she's like, how'd the tests go? Did you get in the gifted program? I'm like, no. She's like, why not? I'm like, cause they said, what's a tripod? She's like, you don't know what a tripod is? Come on, tripod 3, like triangle and tricycle 3. And so now I was like talking to my kids and I'm like, do you know what that bike is called? That's a tricycle. Tri means 3, like triangle. And so I'm getting them in early so they don't feel stupid because man, it like hit me over the head. So yeah, don't ask me questions about like Trivial Pursuit, cannot play anything like social culture. I don't know. Like I practically like don't even know what happened in the pandemic because I kind of just sleep through things like that. I don't watch the news and it's amazing. I'm even a coach. Everyone listening is like, whoa, stay clear of this chick. But at least it's entertaining.
I'm horrible at those
idioms totally confused
too.
Right there. You were like, like tricycle, like a bicycle. And I was like, well, they have 2 wheels. And I was like, oh, wait.
I know. Well, it's like, I didn't want to give away the punchline. I guess I messed that up. I never told it that way, but yeah, they were really riding a tricycle, tricycle around the pool of all places. Like this is a great place to ride your tricycle. You're 3, you're 5. There's a cover on the pool. Nothing bad will happen. No, the cover was off. We're fine. I'm a good mom. Moving on.
I'm
glad we can have fun.
God. No, I am horrible at those idioms too. I used to be a reporter, like at a daily newspaper, and like back in the day, they would edit your articles like in front of everybody. This is like an open floor plan, and then the editor would always be like, what do you mean for all intensive purposes? It's for all intents and purposes. Like, I was always getting those wrong. I'm like, I'm gonna stop putting these in my articles because I don't know what I'm talking about. I learned a lot with that public shame and humiliation in the newsroom.
Public shame and humility is so valuable.
Oh gosh, I know. Isn't it though?
It's probably better than writing like tense and porpoises, though. So to bring it back to narwhals, it's pretty good. No, so I have a really bad. I remember one of those that was super embarrassing, where I kind of got a word place thing wrong. So we grew up in a town called Ellicott City, and I think they asked us about like who Ellicott was, and I answered that it was like the boy in E.T. because I think his name was Elliot. And like everybody laughed, and it was totally the wrong answer, but at least I had seen the movie E.T. So
like play it off like you meant it. You meant that.
No, it was pretty bad. It was a bad moment. Like I still remember that. Like I was like 8 years old, and like just everybody's laughing, and I'm like, whatever. E.T.'s incredible.
I know those are like embedded. I mean, they're so like so hard to forget. I remember I always thought I had a bad voice. I somehow ended up a singer-songwriter for a short stint, which still I didn't have a great voice, but and I remember at camp, I went to a Jewish camp, and we were singing songs, and kids were laughing, like this boy and like these other kids were laughing at me, and I was like, oh, it's because my voice is so bad, because my mom sounds like a horrible person, but she used to tell me she's a little critical, but she used to tell me that I sounded nasal. So I assumed they were laughing at me because I was singing really nasally, and it was horrible. And then finally they told me why, and it did have to do with my nose, but they said my nostrils would flare when I sang, and they just thought it looked funny. They weren't necessarily saying my voice was bad, but it was like so traumatizing. I'm like, everybody thinks I can't sing. And then of course, just like thinking I was stupid, I got straight A's, just like, feeling like I couldn't sing, I went and became a singer-songwriter. So it tells you a little bit about me, like, oh no, I'm going to prove them wrong. Or I got such a like an ego around this. I got to go succeed so I don't feel stupid and can't sing. So now I should lay down on the couch and get some trauma therapy. But
I'm glad we all got to unpack those things today.
I know. I feel like
it's way heavy,
I go back in the cold plunge now.
So that kind of leads us in a perfect way into we always like to hear about what you wanted to be when you were little growing up, and how did you become the Robyn Crane coach, author, speaker, all of the things.
Yeah. So what I do actually remember such weird memories, like of all the memories, like I said, I can't remember like my first memory, like money memory, but then I have these weird memories like those, usually the traumatizing one. But I do remember like there was this weird, I don't know, there's this bush by my, like outside my front yard. And I don't know, this is not really relevant to the story, but I remember like singing to myself, holding on to the, like these little like buds of the bush. And I was imagining, cause I used to really love Kirk Cameron. Okay. I don't know if you remember Kirk Cameron. I might be a little older than you, Anna, for sure. But I had like 27 pictures of Kirk Cameron on my wall. Like, and I was always counting. I just loved Kirk Cameron. And for some reason I would imagine like a limo going by, and maybe Kirk Cameron was in there, and someone would overhear me sing and be like, wow, your voice is amazing. Like someone in a limo. And like your voice, maybe it was Kirk Cameron, maybe it was just someone else. But, and then would think I was so amazing. And then I would just be, of course, famous and be a singer. So I don't know that I wanted to be it, but I definitely had some visions around it. Again, interesting course of events that I ended up then later becoming a singer-songwriter. And that was, I traveled around the world for about a year when I was 24, 25. And then I came back, and I had brought my guitar, and I wrote some songs and stuff. And so I thought, you know what, like I'm kind of like following this passion, I'm just going to see where it leads me. And so I knew this guy in Philadelphia who had a record label. And so I thought that was cool. And so I decided to, and he kind of built this vision like, oh, you come to Philadelphia, we'll make your record. And of course you have to pay for this. Right. And he wasn't selling me in a mean way, but like he definitely built the vision. So I said, screw it. I'll move to Philadelphia and I'll do this, not like a record deal, but like make my own record, which wasn't really a record. It was a CD back then, but we still called it a record because we were cool. And then I pursued like being a singer-songwriter for a bit. Like I went after a few years, ended up doing my albums, and then I went touring for a bit. Of course, I didn't really make a lot of money or have a lot of success because remember, my nostrils flared, right? But I did have a lot of fun with it. And then when I decided to give that up, I wasn't really into it anymore. It wasn't feeling fulfilled. I ended up like going back to live with my parents for a few months, figure out like, where am I going in life? And I got a job interview rather, at a financial advisory firm. And I was like, well, I'm on my way to move to San Francisco, and it's literally on the peninsula, on the like path, like the driving on the road to going there. And so I took the interview for interview practice, then became a financial advisor somehow. And the rest is history. Now, once I became a financial advisor for a while, I realized I was actually better at helping people make more money than grow the money. And so then I went in the direction of helping business owners and women. And then it ended up being financial professionals. So that's how Robyn Crane became Robyn Crane, except I also got married, which actually, because I wasn't Robyn Crane. That's how I really became Robyn Crane. My name changed. Other than that, I think the important stuff was the path that you asked about.
So we do have a band in the works, and we're in need of a singer-songwriter. So
oh boy, I'm pretty rusty. My specialty was writing cynical love songs. So now that I am happily married, it's a little bit tough, but I could maybe write some other cynical things. Like I'm sure I can expand to, cynical business, cynical financial industry, news.
Cynicism is my superpower, so I got you.
All right. This is maybe our band should just be like the Cynics.
That's a good one. Jamie.
Yeah, do we have I don't know if we have any singers. I mean, I think Daniel Crosby sings a little bit, right?
Yeah, we haven't come across any singers, so this is just fortuitous, just worked out.
I'll do my best.
If you come to Nashville in September for Excel, which is always a great way to plug Excel, we will be doing some live music there with potentially some guest appearances from people like
not us,
Anna.
Well, if you bring Robyn Crane in, it's going to be business and cynical love songs and business and cynical love songs. You'll have to, vote in, tell them, oh, no, you should definitely bring Robyn in as a speaker. And don't forget to sing at least one of the cynical love songs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, it's a pretty good sell. Like if you're willing to do, songs in addition to speak, it probably increases your your speaking
marketability
value. Yeah. Just you get paid more for that.
I've thought about that. I have brought it into every once in a while. I bring it into an event, but it's very rare. It hasn't happened. Usually it's more like I was more of a performer than a singer. And as you can tell, still am. So I bring my performance definitely like into my events and my speaking and all that. But like I did this, unfortunately, I don't have it right now, but I talked about cloning, and the last speaking engagement I did, I was like, keep cloning and cloning, kind of like the Energizer Bunny, but I paused and I put bunny ears and sunglasses, and I had a drum that my kids, and I was like, and cloning and cloning and cloning. And I thought I was hilarious. So that's all that matters. But I don't sing typically, but I do perform a little bit.
Prop comedy's pretty good. I'm a fan.
Yeah.
Mine doesn't always go over well. Anna can attest to that.
He's working on it, though. He's working on that prop comedy and humor.
Yeah. One guy after was like, do you do stand-up? Are you a stand-up comic? And I'm like, no, but thank you. And now I have this like vision of doing a TED Talk that's like equally valuable as hilarious. So that's my next like big, I think, challenge is to like do a really phenomenal TED Talk that's extremely valuable, but also extremely funny.
Well, you heard it here on Framework.
You heard it here. We'll see if I do it. Now I'm accountable.
All right. So why don't we hop into this part a little bit? So you have you've kind of mentioned it a little bit, right? So you've got you're growing your financial business, the Woman's Way community. Let's kind of talk a little bit about that. Like, how did that come about? How does it impact professionals and advisors, and what do you actually deliver there for people?
Yeah, well, the main thing now is like the podcast. So Growing Your Financial Business, the Woman's Way podcast, which the whole idea of it really, especially because the last 7 years I've been working mostly with women. And so I found that we really need more women in the industry because it's still so archaic. It's still very obviously male dominated. And it's not just male dominated, it's still skewed on like older white males. We talked a little bit about this when you guys were on my podcast. And so I think like there just needs to be a massive shift. And we started really focusing on, you know, how do we get more women in the industry? And I think the core challenge has been, or let's just say this, like the industry has started to focus on the recruiting side of bringing more women and more minorities in to be like, oh, let's go. We talked about this on my podcast, but going to like the college level and stuff like that. But I think they do a really crappy job at keeping them in. And I, as a woman who was in the financial industry, a CFP for 10 years, who just, you know, even though I even had female managers, like my OSJ was a woman, my direct manager was a woman, they were still teaching me to do like marketing and sales the way that I was not aligned with. And so what really got me into doing this and teaching this was actually a little bit of an accident. We actually, when I left the industry, I started marketing to female entrepreneurs because I realized I was better at like sales and marketing than I was at actually like managing money. I can tell you stories about that, but I've made a lot of mistakes. So I didn't feel like that was my superpower. I was always good at coaching. I had a money coaching program. I had something called Kim Jim, Know Your Money to Grow Your Money. I had something called Money Parenting, where I was teaching parents to raise financially responsible kids by leading by example. I was always a great coach, just not a great money manager. And even though a lot of advisors out there use other money managers, it was like the opposite of everything I touched turns to gold. It was like, I'm like, okay, I'm going to switch money managers. And then like, in 2008, for example, or 2009, like I was like, oh, I don't want to just buy and hold forever. Like I need a money manager, an active money manager that like uses technical analysis. And so then I used a money manager that used technical analysis. And then the market went straight up for like ever for a decade or more. And I was like, probably would have been better to just buy and hold shit. So I made a lot of bad decisions, even though I wasn't the one managing the money. And I started like, because I had to invest in myself and become a lot better at sales and marketing to grow my business. Then I got clients who were business owners and started kind of I had an OBA, like an outside business activity to teach business. And so I started doing more business coaching and sales coaching and things like that. So then we kind of launched the new business after I sold my business in 2016 to women entrepreneurs. And it just really bombed. Like everyone that got on a call was like it was like a hobby. They weren't really making money. It was really hard because I was trying to sell a high ticket coaching program. That didn't work. And then these Facebook ads guys who I just started working with, which was a big stretch financially, they were like, why don't you work with financial advisors? And I was like female financial advisors. And I was like, because I wasn't that good at it. Like I was like, I didn't have 100 million under management. Like who the hell am I to teach them stuff? And I did stuff way differently. Like I was doing money coaching. I had an OBA, like I got to 6 figures, but like it was not from managing money and selling life insurance and annuities. Like how can I teach them this? And they're like, well, that's an asset. That's actually, not a bad thing. And so that is how it really morphed, is like, I was like, okay, I'll try it. But I had a lot of like imposter syndrome at the beginning, like feeling like, well, how do I know, And I remember one of my first clients who was just very, very successful. She was actually an accountant for hedge fund managers. And we got on this call, and it was the first client I had that was making over $1 million a year. She was doing $2 million a year. And she was coming to my event somehow from LinkedIn marketing. I think I got her to come to at the time it was my 1-day Position Yourself for Profits event. Now we have it as a 3-day event. But anyway, she was coming, and I was very smart about sales. So like I had a conversation with every woman who was coming, and there were only 8 of them. So it wasn't that hard. And I had a conversation with her that was supposed to be 15 minutes. It lasted like 45. And just understanding, because I didn't understand like what the heck she even did and how the heck she made $2 million. But what I understood is how to sell and ask the right questions in a way that's not salesy, in a way that's more transformational. But to really understand, well, what does she want and what's holding her back and all these things. And she said like that was the most valuable conversation she ever had about her business. And she came to the event and she's like, essentially like, I don't care what you're selling, but I'll buy the highest. She didn't say that till after, but she bought whatever the highest option was. And she was in, and I worked with her for quite some time. And I was like, wow, I only had made the most of my life, $200,000 a year. And I was able to help someone who was making 2 million. And she actually, within 7 months of us working together, sold her business for $6 million. And she thought like, hopefully someday she'd sell it for 10. And instead she sold it in 7 months for 6 million. So she was pretty happy about that. So that was kind of a good confidence booster. And it wasn't a financial advisor at the time. I wasn't as targeted, but that was kind of the evolution, and also like the evolution of my confidence and like, oh, okay, I have value, even though maybe I haven't gotten the exact result. I have learned some things. I do know how to coach. I do know how to get people the results. And I was just, at the time, it was just women was the lowest hanging fruit. And that's how I got into it. Did I answer your question?
I would say so.
I mean, if I did, that was awesome. If not,
that was awesome.
Ask me anything else.
So Robyn, on your podcast, we kind of talked a little bit about, the future of the profession and like the changes that we've seen in our time in the profession. And so now as we run this episode, we're in the month where we're talking about the future of the profession. So I wanted to get your perspective as someone who came in 2006. Like, what are some of the biggest changes you've witnessed in that time? And what are some things you think we're going to be seeing in the next 10 to 15 years?
Well, it's interesting because from my perspective, because I look a lot at the sales and marketing, to some degree, I feel like I notice the things that haven't changed that I think should change almost more than I notice the things that have changed. So I'm going to answer that in an opposite way to mix things up. So they have to go to our podcast to hear what we said. But to me, like, I think the biggest concern, which is why I'm so passionate about this, is like the same marketing techniques they taught back in 2006 and well before are very similar to what they're teaching now. Now, like what's creeping in now, of course, is social media and brand awareness but brand awareness, like, and we talked a little bit about this, but like, it's so minor. It's like if I go, this is when I do my speaking engagements and keynotes and stuff and webinars, one of the things I say is that messaging is an unfamiliar term in the financial industry. Like that's one of my steps on my revenue accelerator system. It's the third step. And I'm like, messaging. And they're like, huh? And I'm like, how many of you, I literally was at this keynote and I was like, how many of you have actually heard that before? Like that messaging is what drives beliefs. Beliefs drives behaviors. And the behaviors are the things that you want, like meeting with you, working with you, referring you. And then those behaviors drive results. Like how many of you have heard that messaging is actually important in that? One person raises their hand. I'm like, oh yeah, Lisa, who's in my program. Anyone else? It's like literally like the word messaging is like a complete foreign word. It's like someone like me who doesn't know what the heck a narwhal is, right? Or a tripod for that matter. So, I mean, to me, it's like, are you kidding me? Like in the marketing world, and digital marketing is not new anymore. Messaging is everything. Like messaging is the only reason anyone is listening to this podcast. If you went on, and even if you have the best reputation in the world and you said on the next podcast, everyone listening right now sucks, and like, I think you're a dumbass, whatever. Okay. It's a bad example, but basically if you even change that messaging, you start making someone feel bad for listening, or you tell them they're stupid, like that's it. Like you've changed that behavior. Now, maybe you could save it, maybe you couldn't, but like messaging is so important. And I think financial advisors are like, I know financial advisors are so not aware of that and don't think of, what they put out there as that. And not what they put out there is not important, but that not understanding that messaging drives behaviors is costing them so much money and hurting the world, because it's like people don't know who you are. You're invisible. They don't know you exist. They don't know how much value. So I think, what hasn't changed is like this lack of awareness that is around messaging, around being like really specific about who you want to target. I think it's better to some degree. Like they always say the riches are in the niches. And then some people, the higher level people know that they need to be more specialized. The higher level people know that they need to have more of a niche, and they go for the high net worth clients. And so there's that awareness there. But I think the actual way that when people come in the industry to learn to grow their business, it's still completely archaic. And there's like the skill level when it comes to marketing and sales is like basically the like gum at the bottom of my shoe. Like it's really, really bad, sticky, and gross. So there's my analogy. I did an analogy. It wasn't very good. Case in point, I just had to prove myself. So I think obviously there's a lot more focus on, okay, we do need more women, but I don't think there's a lot of great action around it. Again, it's focused on bringing more women in, but not keeping them in. Same thing with minorities. Like, I don't think, and again, as someone who's not an African-American or Latina or something, like, I don't like to speak for them because I don't know how it feels to be someone like that. But as a woman, I know that, like, I'd go to a conference and feel like completely like it's just scary just not knowing like how to stand in my own skin because I think I have to be someone I'm not. But I do think at least there's some more awareness, and there's definitely some movement towards wanting to create more equity, which is good, but it's slow as hell. And then I also think there's some awareness coming in around brand, having a brand and actually using other marketing strategies, especially at higher levels, beyond just the networking COIs and, calling friends and family. Like, although at the lower levels, that's exactly what they still teach. So again, I also like, because my exposure has been to, typically my clients, the ones that I really help are maybe in the $100,000 to $300,000 range to go to 500 to $1 million. Like, that's kind of my sweet spot. But then of course, if you're going to that ideal client, you get a lot of people who are also aspiring to be that way. So they might only make 50 grand or might only make 40 grand. And like, I hear, like, cause I do Facebook marketing. So I hear like all these challenges. And I'm like, are you freaking kidding me? Like, they're still teaching that? No, it's not the list of 100. It's the list of 200 now. Oh, things have really changed. Things have really changed because now you need 200 people to get like this 10-3-1 crap. That's such bullshit. Like, am I allowed to say that? Sorry, I didn't ask about swearing. Anyway, but this 10-3, like the same stuff is being taught. Like, it's a numbers game, 10-3-1. I'm like, really? Like, how about knowing what KPIs mean? Because like most advisors never heard that term KPIs, and I'm like, yeah, like that's the 10-3-1 stuff, except it's real because you look at real numbers and see what converts. So as you can see, back to being the cynic, since our band is now the Cynics, I have a lot of cynicism around it, skepticism around it, because I just think it's so archaic. And it's really sad to me that we have like all these people in the world who need help financially, whether they're really, really like great savers and have a lot of money, or who are going to be the next, like who could be the leaders of the world. Like, those savers, investors need as much help as the people who are broke and living on the street. Like, because actually we need the leaders to be more successful, and so that they can be the ones changing the world. Like, I think it's interesting, now I'm on a rant, but I think it's interesting how some people feel bad to help the high net worth. Like, and I'm sorry to say it, but like, who's going to change the world? And it's not just because of money. It's leadership. And it's like, the people who are the CEOs or the high level C-suite executives or the business owners that are making millions of dollars, they're going to be the ones that are going to have the biggest impact. And if they're shackled by money problems, like we've just like basically, wiped from their, like cut them at their knees to not be able to help the world because they have these challenges around money that could be so easily solved if we just had people helping them in the right way without it just being transactional or, or weird or not brand related or have no messaging. I said my piece.
No, this was awesome. And I just want to, I'll try to keep us on time as much as we can. Right. But this was amazing, Robyn. Last time Anna and I got to spend time with you was a blast. This was a blast too. There's so many topics. We'll close out with a quick question we ask everybody on the show, or almost everybody, is what does freedom mean to you?
Choices. Freedom to me just means having choices to do not just do what I want to do, but because I think a lot of that makes it sound like it's whatever's comfortable. I think more about being able to do what I want to do and make the impact that I want to make. So I have the choice, because when I'm having my own, let's say, cash flow challenges, when there's something like not working on Facebook ads or something like that, how much of an impact can I make if I don't have the freedom to have, consistent cash flow and have, making more money so I can help more people? Then like, I don't have freedom. And I think also the people around me don't have the freedom, because I know I bring that to others. Right. So for me, it is choices, but everything always goes back to impact for me.
Well, I love that. It's been a wonderful episode, from clones to singing, to flared nostrils, to feet of shampoo, to messaging.
One
right?
foot. I said 1 foot.
1 foot of shampoo.
That's going to be the title of this episode.
That's the Cynic's first album is 1 foot of shampoo.
God. Oh, I totally gotta write that song. This is so inspiring.
So much done today. I love it.
Wow, 1 foot of shampoo. I totally gotta write that song for you guys. It could be at the beginning of the episode, like in the background.
That could be our theme music for Framework from now on.
It actually plays, like that sentence oddly plays well together too, right? Like 1 foot of shampoo. Like it's got a whole like ring.
Oh yeah, it was gonna be amazing.
Oh
I'm
man,
so inspired.
It's like, yeah, then you're gonna have like limos just drive by and be like, "Are you the 1 foot of shampoo, Robyn?"
Oh hey, yes. Why don't you just give me that check for $1 million right now? Oh yeah, good. Let's just sign on the dotted line. I'm in. Yeah. I mean, doesn't everybody have business like that?
Still, but Kirk Cameron might even pay.
Oh my gosh, Kirk Cameron, if you're listening to this, I know you're super Christian, but like, I still love you. Not but. I mean, I have nothing wrong with Christian. I'm just Jewish, you know, and so it's just a little maybe not a match. Also married with 3 children. Otherwise, love you.
That was a lot of qualifiers. So on that note, Robyn, thank you so much for joining us today. Everybody else, thank you for listening to this episode of the Framework Podcast. Make sure you subscribe so you never miss an episode.